Hello and welcome back to not the Power Podcast. Uh, I'm so used to doing this. Hello and welcome back to AnimiteTales Character Workshop. We don't have a jingle. Today we actually have Sam joining us instead of Kane.
Hey.
Today
I'm
we're
also here.
we're going to completely ignore Alex. By the way, I've got the artwork for Adrian and Rakia, along with my little one, my little me, just in the middle.
Adorable. Look at him.
That white background is probably going to kill a lot of people's screens, and I'm sorry, but I'm not going to change it. Right, so we're going to talk about Deadpool. How do we make Deadpool? I'm gonna say this now. Again, we are building this based off of the tabletop RPG AnimiteTales. How would you make him? And we're all gonna come up with it, and then we'll just fire off ideas at each other. I'm gonna start with Sam. How would you make Deadpool? Let's say the powers and the fighting style first.
Okay. Well, it would be the healing power, obviously, whatever it's called again. In this
Healing factor.
healing factor. Probably with a unique attribute saying that if you, for limbs, as opposed to growing rapidly, they would grow either over a series of days or that you can just grab them and put them back on.
You can technically already do that.
Well, okay then. Okay, Mr. Smarty Pants.
Someone doesn't listen.
Fighting style. Well, fighting style is pretty easy. Just like the swords, the guns, hand to hand. But maybe have it's either a not knowledge, but maybe a special one so it can't be copied. So it's random moves. So it's not something that could be maybe advantage against people that are looking for specific against.
Okay.
Maybe
I get what you mean. Yeah, I get what you mean. Like an unpredictable fighting
unpredictable
style.
Yeah. So maybe advantage on people that know actual fighting styles and are looking for it. So they're people who are more knowledgeable about fighting styles might actually have a worse time against them.
Okay.
Because they're looking they know the styles, so they can't handle not having someone who has any of the styles.
Okay.
Like Taskmaster is what I'm saying, pretty much.
So you're saying healing factor, obviously gun, sword, and martial arts proficiency, but a sort of a confusing, what's it called? Impromptu fighting style.
Unpredictable one.
Yeah, okay. Unpredictable martial arts.
Say, well, trying to think what other powers he has that besides the fourth wall one, which would probably just be a knowledge. It would be something.
We can come back to you, if you're not sure.
Yeah,
I do. I have it. I do have it.
What?
Well, it'd be its own trade. It'd be probably fourth wall breaking, so that
we just have something. Yeah.
Yeah. It would just have its own levels. The first would just be knowledge, knowledge of being in a comic book and the tropes, and various other bits of random. You just have knowledge of reality and the comic book. It's the series at large.
Okay.
And maybe you can ask the DM questions occasionally, once a day, or a once a week thing. So you can just, hey DM, what's this? Looks like it's going to take a while. Do you know what the bad guy is? Can you just tell us?
No. It'll be even better because with the apostle abilities, it's when you're praising a god and stuff, but you're literally sort of kind of worshipping and asking the DM questions. So it's like the game god. So you'll be like, hey, game god, and you praise. Yeah, and you think you praise it. You just do a prayer to say, "Please, game God, don't let me die this session."
Come on, Joe.
I'll have my opinions after I hear out what Alex has to say first. So Alex, what about yourself? How would you go about making Deadpool?
Well, I think that healing factor is a must.
Yep.
Of course. But I think we also underestimate, that he has like a lot of it. That he has a lot of dexterity as well as like endurance and like regrowth abilities. So I would pair that with hyper agility, and that would go really well with his katana proficiency, and also great accuracy on his guns. And all the other weapons that he uses. And to be fair, there is. I know nobody likes X-Men Origins, but Wolverine, but that's one of the powers that he does start with. It's like, hyper agility with his katanas and, so going so fast that he can just like precisely deflect
I mean,
bullets.
even in the comics, in the comics, after he gets his healing factor, he also gets way better with his agility, to the point of which that they state that his agility is almost, if not actually, superhuman.
So well, there you go. You see, so you got to have the super agility there, and he's not a speedster, but he does. He can do incredible athletic feats, and so I think he would have to be an anomaly in this case. And
Okay.
I think I do like. I think that also to go with the whole theme of his disfigurement as well. I think we'd have to have like a unique attribute to his healing factor. So like if he gets nullified, like he starts losing health rapidly because his healing factor is keeping
You
him
stole
alive.
that from me.
Yes, well, it is true. Yeah, I did. So what are you gonna do about it?
We spoke about this
I'm
last week, and you stole that from me.
yeah, I did. Yeah, well, you should have brought it to the podcast first before I stole it, and now it's mine. This is how it works.
Well, okay. Are you done?
Yeah, yeah. Unless
Okay.
I'm just trying to think of everything else you said,
So
I can.
I'll state mine then. First of all, obviously, healing factor is a must. You're both right on that. It's unavoidable. Like its power is literally to heal. But you're both wrong on the fact that you didn't say this. The level 10 ability nigh unkillable. Because literally you can have your head cut off and still survive if you get a high enough roll. Plus, no, he should not need to be a hyper agility user. I don't think so. I think prestige power user, doubling down on his own healing factor, having it to the point of which that he can heal a ridiculous amount. But instead of getting that extra buff at the level 10, he then just makes it so that he gets what's it called? Ironclad's his level 10 ability at level 20, meaning that all of the rolls under nigh unkillable are basically at 10s at that point. So you pretty much just get 10s and everything is super easy, barely an inconvenience, and you can stay alive, neutralise most of the downsides of almost any ailments, heal pretty darn rapidly, and of course heal a huge amount of health and pretty much be unkillable. Therefore, if any of those injuries catch up with you, you would then be, dead if you got nullified. Now, Alex, well done for stealing my unique attribute, but you stole it wrong. You see, the ability was actually supposed to increase the user's regenerative ability by 2 dice up. That's not that great, except from in the long run, that actually does affect it. The 2 downsides is every so many hours, so every hour, the user rolls a d4. That d4 then takes away from the user's maximum health whilst nullified. And it keeps on, meaning that they rot and rot and rot, because when Deadpool is nullified, he is just full of cancers and tumours, because that's his origin. When his powers are no longer nullified, the cancers no longer are killing him, as anyone who has nigh unkillable is immune to decay, as well as the problems that come with the rot ailment. So, you also then state, if the user gets to 0, because this just happens, what happens when you have rot, once you get to 0 or lower with rot, your character just dies and they cannot come back. There's just no way of them coming back. The second downside to this ability was that the user rolls disadvantage with any kind of seduction rolls unless they are wearing something that covers up their face/body due to the disfigurement. That was the actual unique attribute.
Yeah, but I didn't like those bits, so I did
if you're going to steal it correctly. Second, now hang on. Sam, we gave you time.
Sorry.
First of all, Katana Proficiency, obviously a must with a nice little dual wield. Dual wield pistol proficiency, you might as well give him multiple different firearm proficiencies. And then, obviously, maxed out dex, maxed out acrobatics, maxed out finesse. The other stuff could very well be useful, but again, not a must, not a need. And then, finally, I would say, in the terms of the martial arts, I do think you are right, Sam. The unpredictability thing is a really good thing. Although I would state that that's either a unique attribute, or it would be a strenuous form, where whilst the user is active, anyone who tries to predict this guy's moves rolls disadvantage, and the other downside to the effect whilst the user is in this mode is that anyone who is attempting to copy them cannot do so because they are blink and you miss it. Oh wait, what was that? Sort of attacks. I will say you could do it as either a unique attribute, you could do it as a strenuous form. The reason I say this is because that when you get to level 10 in any trade or proficiency, you can get what's known as a master skill, which can either be a master skill, an ultimate mastery, which is an ultimate mastery is like a once a day use thing, but it's like a ridiculously overpowered thing that you don't even roll for. But the one that I'm talking about is a master attribute, which basically you just get a free unique attribute. And I just think having the facet of unpredictable combat would be quite useful. In terms of the fourth wall breaking, that can either be a unique attribute that is actually mechanical, or you could just have it that it's more of a DM sort of alignment/agreement where they've gone so insane that they now are aware that they are a tabletop RPG character in this particular sense. But I would argue that they would never be able to contact the DM. They'd be able to hear the DM, but every time that they spoke to them, they're not able to roll charisma against the DM or anything like that. And the reason why I say this is because nothing that Deadpool ever says or does necessarily affects what is happening in his comic book universe. He can't just go, "Hey, writers, give me this," and then he suddenly has it. Unless if you see Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, where he actually is going to the writer's room to kill them so that then the comic books end, which is actually probably one of my favourite moments. But yeah, so that's my answer to that. I guess I'll quickly just go back through what you said, both of you. I do actually honestly agree with the whole concept of him being an anomaly, Alex. Having hyperagility, definitely agree with.
There's more than one way to build him. That's the thing. And
we've already stated this before. There's so many different ways that you can build him, but there's only one power that he has to have, which is his healing factor.
One more thing though. In terms of like trades and stuff, why don't we have like a proficiency in wisecracking?
Well, this would be under performance, or you could actually use charisma. Now, I do think having performance would make the most sense, because you could also have a bit where he uses performance alongside his martial arts, whereas like breakdance fighting, because he actually does use that a couple of times against certain characters. Taskmaster is one of them.
And you never know when you're going to find a ukulele. So
That is
Yes.
absolutely true.
Oh, and he is a master of disguise. We've all seen him in costumes that aren't his normal costume.
Oh my god, yeah, I showed Sam this actually in an anime Marvel property. Deadpool literally staples a picture of Tony Stark to his face and tries to break into the Stark building.
I mean, to be honest, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about remember he's wearing that amazing hunter's costume when he met the robot animals.
Oh yeah.
Oh dear.
Master of disguise.
I mean, either way, that could be underperformance. To be fair, like
Yeah,
where he
definitely
just
under.
makes disguises.
I mean, should say that'd be in like inverted commas, like master inverted commas of disguise.
I just like
Inverted commas.
I just like the idea that it's a master skill. It only has one ability in it, which is the user just takes what they have, and they have a very flimsy disguise, which could fool maybe some things, but not everyone. Basically, meaning whatever you got as a roll, people need to roll in insight or perception or intelligence. However, they get the upside to this is they get to roll advantage. It's like. Aha. So it's therefore like if you fail any of those roles that you've just given there, it's like you now believe this to actually be Tony Stark with zero problems whatsoever. Like all I have done is put a mustache on, and now I'm stating that I am not Deadpool, but I am Deadpool's other brother. And then suddenly like they get that advantage and they fail it, and then it's just like I now believe that not only does Deadpool have an identical brother but with a mustache, I now believe that you are actually him.
He's just the spy from Team Fortress. He just puts on a paper mask. I am someone else now.
Like, well, there's nothing to the contrary to disprove it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh wait, we forgot to mention his one other power. I mean, not other power. His teleportation belt.
No, so we'll get into that in a second. We'll get into the equipment in a second. Shove that back down. Right. So
okay.
we were just talking about powers and we're talking about feats. So now we've got those out of the way. You know, we've got that. However, out of the three of us, who's are we voting for that would be the one that would be the most legitimate to be used in a game with as little DM or narrator allowance as possible? We did this last episode, by the way, Sam, where we had this thing where we said which is the closest to the character and which is the one that would be allowed regardless. Like, which is the one where the narrator would actually have to go, okay, if I allowed this, you know, this is going to be a struggle, but it is the most lore accurate or the closest representation that we can currently think out of our three.
You know, I think that, like, I don't know, because, like, I personally wouldn't allow the prestige one. Because, like, you would be very good. You basically have a lot of situations where you get decapitated a lot, but there's no threat of death whatsoever, and you just have to have a nullifier on hand all the time to, like, put that threat still in. Whereas,
that's kind of the
like,
whole point of Deadpool, I'd argue. Like,
yes, but it's like, yeah, but from, like, a DMing point of view, it's like...
Yeah, but okay, to be fair, another argument for this, and I actually did see this, which was, well, if you have someone who has nullification in your party, you have to balance it where you have a load of people that don't have powers that can fight without them. And yeah, you could do that, but at the same time, it's just one of those things that just happens that, like, you know, some party members are going to have ridiculously powerful abilities, regardless of whether or not it's in AnimiteTales or not. It's just, you know, there's a ton of different times where it's like, this is an entire campaign set around unholy creatures. Oh, and it turns out that someone's made a paladin, someone's made a cleric, and someone's made a monk, and all of them use certain abilities that are based off of holy artifacts, holy powers, holy this, holy that, and it's just now they can defeat almost every single one of the enemies that I throw at them. But it's just one of those things where it happens. So
I mean, like that's the thing as well. Is the comic stories themselves are meant to be unbalanced. There's there's the Hulk over there, and then there's Batman.
I'd say in the terms of... Sorry, I was just going to say, I'd say in the terms of narrator allowance, I would probably say that I'd probably state that if it weren't for the unique attributes, I would have said mine or yours, Alex. But because that both of us said unique attributes, I wouldn't have done it. I would have said mine over yours, obviously, just because that, you know, it's more about the healing factor. I feel so. Therefore, I'd have to say Sam's, because Sam did actually hit it right on the money. Which is, it doesn't even require, like, technically, if Sam brought this to me and it's like, I'm going to play as Deadpool and I have a healing factor, I don't care about the unique attribute, don't care about this, don't care about that, I just want a guy who can heal, he's kind of insane, maybe I have it that he's got hyper wisdom, or hyper intelligence, but the wisdom / intelligence is just basically, he can hear the narrator and hear all the players, and he knows that he's this, but he can't talk to them. Or even having it that he has an apostle where he has knowledge of the stuff that's going on outside of the game. I'd be like, yeah, that's fair enough, because technically he'd have to roll apostle to do so, or he'd have to roll intelligence or roll wisdom to do so. And obviously all of the proficiencies again made sense. So I'd say that's in my opinion anyway. Like, that's what I would say.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't agree with that.
Regrettably, I have to say Joe's one, because do we tell you why? For one simple reason, is that there is a Deadpool that is nothing but a head and survives by more or less flying everywhere with the propeller hat. So now unkillable, I have to agree that is how Deadpool would be.
However, Sam, do you think that out of the three of us, which is the easiest for a narrator to grant allowance for? Yeah.
Mine, because I didn't bother trying to think of unique attributes and how nullification works on you. I just said, well, here's what I would do, and here's simple.
I mean, technically, although that because I don't think you know all of the level 10's names anyway, so technically you say healing factor, the only one that would make sense would either be that you'd be early balancing your anomaly character, or you would be getting nigh unkillable, because the other one is self-biomass manipulation, which Deadpool never at any point shows to be able to do that. So technically your character would have, like, that, your Deadpool would have it. That's why I said that I would agree as a narrator, as the only one of us who has actually done, like, long-term DMing in AnimiteTales. I would, if these three were put in front of me and they said, oh yeah, I'm just going to do this, don't worry about having to okay anything, I'd be like, sorry, Alex and me, no. Like, I'm going to have a look through this. Whereas, like, if Sam just brought this to me, I'd be like, I don't know about the meta-knowledge thing, but yeah, other than that, everything's alright. I guess I could have a look over this. But everything, technically, if you just said, oh, it's a meta-apostle thing, where every time I roll it, I get to maybe hear the actual voices outside of the game. So it's like I get to hear what the players are saying, what the narrator is saying. At that point, I'd be like, okay, because technically the only thing that you're doing is you're only praying for knowledge. But I think in the terms of narrator allowance, it would be way easier to just go, F it, yeah, you can have this, rather than going, okay, right, so the unique attribute is this and that. But yeah. In the terms of accuracy to the character, I'm gonna dig my heels in and say that mine is probably, if not the closest, the second closest. And again, I'd say the only reason that mine would be the second is because, again, what Sam is saying is the intelligence / wisdom thing is like hyper intelligence or hyper wisdom. Hyper intelligence or hyper instinct. But the wisdom increase, like the supernatural wisdom increase, is based on he can hear the voices outside of his own universe. I
didn't say it was super wisdom or super intelligence. I just said it was just the trait ability.
Oh, well, in that case, then no. I would still say mine.
Yeah, because he's not super intelligent or super wise.
No,
super wise.
Yeah, I think that it
Considering,
sounds closer in that sense because he's not. It's not to do with
yeah,
his intelligence. It's
But the
just
thing
an
is,
ability he
I
has.
think you're still forgetting that like technically what I said was for mine was that it was more of a DM backstory allowance where it's just like my character can hear sometimes the voices, or at the very least he knows that he is technically not a real cat person. And he is
yeah.
aware that he is a thing. So my character didn't even have any mechanical abilities to do with the fourth wall breaking. He just every now and again would just be this thing of like, oh, here we go again. I hope I get a natural 20. And everyone else is looking at him and was like, what the hell do you mean? And it's like, you wouldn't get it.
But to be honest, that's kind of what I say as well. He just has meta knowledge, and he'd probably just say, "God damn it! Stop sending nullifiers after me!
Yeah,
Why do you
exactly.
keep doing this, Joe?"
In the terms of the actual,
This guy.
actual mechanics, yours is a trade, yes, but I still think that Deadpool's thing is less of him being good at it. Again, this is based off of your argument. He's not necessarily knowledgeable on it. He just has the awareness of it. Hence, why I think there would be more of a backstory allowance rather than a trade.
I mean, do we tell you, would backstory allowance have to be tied with powers?
It doesn't always have to be tied in with powers. Do you mean power discovery?
Yeah, mostly because there have been instances in the comics. Mostly because this is what I was going to say is that Deadpool has lost his powers and he's been fine. In fact, he gets incredibly handsome whenever he's lost his powers. Yeah, he becomes like beach blonde with perfect skin. Because it's a really funny story in the comics, but and then like the reason I say he's not super intelligent or super wise is because he almost gets himself killed so many times because he doesn't understand.
No. I definitely agree with you. I definitely agree with you. I'm just stating that the ability of the fourth wall breaking is more of like a passive thing rather than something that the user would have to actively try to use or activate or roll for. It's like they just know. And again, it's less of an ability that they grab meta knowledge with. It's more just like I can hear the voices and all this, or I know that I'm not real, or I know that I am a comic book character or something like that. Like basically kind of almost like a level of insanity, because it is supposed to be insanity. But
wouldn't that count as just a knowledge trade? Because you know something.
You can again, but as I said, like again, your character doesn't necessarily need to have that. Like for instance, like the ability to read, speak, and write in the game states that you're allowed to have one language that you can read, speak, and write, and then every other language has to be based off of a trade. In this particular scenario, it's more just that you're aware of this particular thing. Like, for instance, in your character's backstory, for Adrian, your character is aware of how only so much because you stated that your character has never left their hive until 2.5 years ago. For Rakia, the same particular thing is said for Rakia. Rakia only knows X, Y, and Z because that they have not left this particular one path. But there are probably things that both of the characters know that each other doesn't. Like either of each other doesn't. So it's just that kind of thing of going back and forth. That, like for instance, the destruction of Iris City, like during your guys' villain campaign, Rakia and Adrian might not even know what that is. They might have heard about it, but to them it's just history that they weren't around for, or history that they weren't conscious of happening during. So it's kind of that same thing with this concept of the character is aware of it. Now, obviously, that is a little tricky because obviously metagaming is probably one of the biggest faux pas for any kind of tabletop RPG. So it'd be quite tricky.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, there's doing metagaming and then there's deliberately doing metagaming. See, that it's like because like metagaming is that you do kind of somewhat secret, or like it's like I know it's like 90 feet only, so if go like 95 feet, he can't hit me with any of his spells. Like that would be metagaming, but if you're in character going, well, he can't hit me at 90 feet. Come on, lies.
Mm.
And that's kind of fun.
I mean,
Like,
I guess you could have. I guess you could have it that it's like like the difference between real metagaming and the metagaming from, like, say, for instance, a Deadpool tabletop RPG character could be like, as you said, oh, well, I know that he's only got 90 feet, so therefore my character is going to move. Whereas, like, Deadpool actually has to hear someone out loud say his range is only 90 feet, and therefore he goes, well, since I know it's 90 feet, I'm just going to run until I get past 90 feet, and then I'm fine. And everyone else in the party is like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you running away? Why have you now stopped? Haha, don't worry, guys. I got this. Like,
yeah. See, that is fun. That is what Deadpool should be.
yes, absolutely. As I said, I'm saying it's a faux pas, but I'm not necessarily saying that I wouldn't allow this. So, I guess the next question that we usually ask this at this point is, would you play as this character slash build, and also would you allow this build to be played in a game?
I'd say yes. Yes and yes. I love them both. I love Deadpool. I love it's just fun as hell.
Mm.
And I don't see anything. I mean, this is the thing. I'm still a little bit unsettled on being like, the nigh unkillable thing, but I think that's something that you could work up to. I wouldn't like get people starting right off the bat with that. I would
mean,
say
some would also argue that I shouldn't have let you have as many levels as I did in this campaign for the thingy, especially because you now have the highest super dex. And
Yeah.
Actually,
maybe it's true.
right.
But
so no.
To be fair, you can still knock out someone who has, can't you? You can
Yep.
still be knocked out.
Oh yeah, you can still knock. Also, I want to point this out is that, like, just because that they don't die doesn't mean that you can't beat them. Like, this is another thing. Like, you could cut their head off, and it's like, well, okay, well, their body falls to the ground because it no longer can literally pick itself up because it's no longer attached to any nerves. The head is rolling around on the floor. I've won. I'm going to now leave. But also, if you destroy them to a certain point, obviously they're not going to be able to easily get back and recover, and they'll have to regenerate. But also, if you put them into the absolute minus, their true minimum health, which is, again, beyond their maximum health in minus, they just die. And unless if they have the ability to resurrect, they just stay permadead. The whole point of that ability, though, this is another thing that you're also forgetting, Alex. The whole point of that ability is to be able to keep on reviving, not to keep on damaging. So, I mean, that whole gimmick is immortality, even though that it's not exactly true immortality, because, again, you can still kill them even without nullification. It's just very damn difficult. I'd allow I like 100%. I'd allow both, and I don't care how unkillable that character is, because there are many different ways that you can annoy them, irritate them, beat them, defeat them without needing to resort to nullifying them.
As they say, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
What is it with you and cats, Sam?
I mean, it's just the saying.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's more than one way to skin a Deadpool.
Note to self: keep Sam away from cats.
To be honest, I thought you were going to say keep Sam away from skinning people.
That's true. I think that's the nearest threat at the moment. He has threatened this before.
Anyway, moving on to the gadgets. So I'm going to talk about probably the three main ones for Deadpool.
I realized I never actually said what I would say.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. You got me tied up in the skinning cats thing that I had to sort of move on very swiftly. Sorry, Sam. How would you feel about those?
I mean, I wouldn't play them because I'm not funny or that clever.
I think you are, but go on. And would you allow it?
Or that witty? Yeah. If someone only if they like play it like it's meant to be, like a joke. If they play it like a joke, then yeah, I'll accept that. If they're playing it like like, Rob Liefeld, Deadpool in that one comic, then no. Don't play Deadpool boring. That's just not. That's just bad.
Okay. Right, anyway, moving on to the gadgets. Well, we already know that he uses katanas, he uses guns, he uses all sorts of different bits and pieces, but we're going to just look at three main things. On top of his weapons and whatnot, he has three main gadgets. A teleportation belt, I'm not going. By the way, I'm not going to talk about his continuity Infinity Stone for many reasons. But we're going to talk about just these three: teleportation belt, cartoon satchel, and his super duper carbonadium sword. Who would like to take which?
I'll take the teleportation belt because I don't know of the other two.
Okay, fair enough. What about yourself? Magic satchel or carbonadium sword?
I'd say like the satchel.
Okay.
Magic satchel.
Right, so I'll go first since I went last time. In the terms of the carbonadium sword, the main abilities that it has is it's made out of metal that generates a radiation that when it strikes a user of healing factor, it slows down their healing factor, kind of nullifying it. It doesn't work on any other types of mutants or other users of any kind of powers. It just affects healing factors. So it's not exactly like it's pure nullification, it's just something that only specifically affects healing powers. You could also state that this ability also not only stops healing factors, but also potentially affects those who have an ability to make themselves immortal. But again, we haven't really ever seen anything like that, so I'll just stick with healing factors. There's two ways that I could do this. One is the absorption regeneration ability, where it just keeps on absorbing health whilst slashing it. And the other one is basically a very specific form of programmed a very specific form of programmed nullification, where it has like a bunch of downsides, like it can't nullify anything else other than healing factor. But I think I'm gonna actually go with a different one, which is I'm just looking for it now. More than likely, I'd probably go for a sword that does like continuous damage, either as continuous poison or continuous corrosive or even continuous energy damage, where it just keeps damaging them, and therefore its ability is that I guess the best way to put it this way is that like it does a certain amount of damage to them, and then the way that it works is every time that they want to heal, the amount of damage that it does will be the same dice as whatever their healing factor is. So there's a chance that it will completely neutralize it. So for instance, like if you have 5d10s of healing, then I hit you with a sword, and then the next time that you attempt to heal, I then get to roll the exact amount of dice that you got to roll, meaning that like I roll 5d10s of healing. And if I succeed, like say for instance you get a 30 and I get a 40, it then cancels out all of those 30 points that you should have healed for. It also would stop whilst I'm going to say like it's like an ailment for like 1d4 of turns every time that I slash, but it resets that each time. But the idea is that the ailment basically stops any of the special abilities of bonuses of passive healing, and also any of the abilities such as like being able to heal the specific wounds. So it would only be basic healing that would be enabled. Again, if that was not allowed, it would just purely be the dice roll damage thing, and it would just be an ailment that just lasts for however long, and it reacts to whenever the user attempts to heal. Because it's a continuous effect, it already would nullify the user's passive healing ability, which grants them a certain amount of health equal to half of the maximum amount of health that they can usually do based on dice, meaning that they don't need to roll. But the downside for healing factor actually states if they have a continuous effect or a continuous ailment, they're not allowed to use passive healing. So, yeah. Anyway, that's my one. Sam, Alex, who wants to go first?
Well, I'm not really familiar with the satchel thing. Is it just a bag of holding?
Basically, it's either a bag of holding or it's either a bag of holding or it's literally just he can just pull out almost anything from it.
I would
Oh.
say that would have to be like, a bag that is made out of a spatial, no, not spatial. What's the one with the
Stone?
Omegans? Yeah, the Omegans that can like create pocket dimensions. What are they called?
What, Animon children or spatial children?
I think maybe spatial children, aren't they? Where they
Yeah.
basically, yeah. I mean, that would work. You just like have like a pocket dimension that is enclosed within just this bag, and it could be seemingly infinite. And like, did we actually do this at one point? Like, I think that we did have something like that. It was a blood transfused bag. That was like a bag of holding, pretty much, where you could store pretty much infinite things in there.
Yep.
And you could just like sort of summon it, basically like, I want so and so item, and then it would like appear in your hand pretty much.
As long as you had that item within your pocket dimension, yes.
Yeah, I mean that would be the thing. Of course, it would have the catch would be that you'd have to actually put something in it. So you'd have to like put all kinds of things. It couldn't be just sort of like, oh yeah, I invent this idea. I invent. What a coincidence! I've got a machine gun in there. You'd have to actually put it in there in order to pull it out again.
Okay, so you say distortion user or even spatial child. No, to be fair, I think yours is either the easiest or the second easiest one.
Yeah.
Behind Sam's.
I mean, if it's one of those ones that spontaneously generates, it's going to probably be like chemistry and telepathy. Chemistry telepathy bag.
Well,
like, I need a gun.
I had originally said it would either be chemistry and telepathy or it would be spatial and telepathy, where the user just puts their hand in this pocket, grabs hold of just nothing, and then as they're pulling out, it's then creating the actual structure out of just solidified space, and then just, there we go, it's now a gun. I've now pulled a gun out of nowhere, sort of thing. So I agree with you. Although also I do like the whole concept of telepathy. It's like I create an illusion, and then however I shape the illusion, it's now a physical object. Sorry, Sam, your teleportation build.
Speaking of telepathy, it would be a teleportation and telepathy stone, but specifically like tactile telepathy, and it would be with animatology, probably an animatology built belt that allows the user to think of the destination or pretty much use telepathy, use teleportation, but not have to actually type anything in. They just use their mind to teleport. So he just thinks, oh, I want to teleport over there. Or I know this location, I will teleport there.
Okay. I mean,
because he doesn't, in the comics, he doesn't really press a button to teleport. He just kind of does teleport.
He thinks it and it happens, yeah.
Yeah, so he just kind of like, oh, I'm going to teleport here and there and here and there and everywhere. And thus
now,
he does.
I know that there's actually specifically supposed to be a limitation on that teleportation belt. It's supposed to be 10 feet distance. So, I mean, again, it could either be pure technology or it could be a teleportation stone.
If we're doing it in this game, because that'd probably be the easiest way to make it.
I mean, to be fair, it would either be the concept of it would have to be attuned because the whole telepathy thing, or it would just have to be teleportation, and then the way that it works is that like the user just rolls, as you said, rolls animatology to just will it to activate. The other possibility is that like the actual particular device itself is hooked up to the user, and so as soon as they think it happens, which I actually quite like the idea of that. But yeah, honestly, there's so many different ways that you could do it, as literally as you said.
And to be honest, I thought of way to now make your sword. Now that I thought about it.
Go on.
Okay. Well, it does not. It pretty much, it can hit someone. It does damage, but against specific people, it lowers. Like because I remember this is the idea I've always really loved. It removes a level of your power, and the more only one level, but the more slashes you get from it, the levels you lose for D4 of rounds or so much. So if you take like 5 attacks, you go to like 5 levels of power. So you would instantly lose probably about a couple of dice worth of healing factors and your best abilities.
The only reason
until the point like you loot till you just become human, more or less.
The only reason, okay, this is the only reason I don't like this. First of all, I feel like it's really kind of like cumbersome. Like it's so bulky of an idea. Like, okay, in real fast, rapid movements, I've hit you say 2-3 times, and you've now gone down 3 levels. That's a really cumbersome thing to happen for, let's say, every so many attacks or every attack. Whereas, like, the reason as to why I said about the ailment thing is because whenever the person actively tries to do it, it's this thing of, okay, the roll is equal to this. All I have to do is just outbeat your roll. It's just a random chance. The other,
but the thing is, though, with that is that even just as you said, it's like, did you say it's like a gradual effect? Like the more attacks you get, the weaker you become with it, or something? Did you say that?
No. I basically just said each time that you got hit by the weapon again, the thing, the timer would reset.
I mean, like in the comics, I mean.
To be fair, that is technically true.
Yeah, but that's the thing with your one is like instantly you become a failure. Instantly that can take you from I am the best to am now just
that is literally how it works. When they get hit by the sword, they can't heal that wound instantly. Like it's that wound is now unable to be healed. They get stabbed again, that wound is also unable to be healed. And it slows down the healing factor to the point of which that it's doing all it can just to keep them alive. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure he kills Wolverine using that sword. So the way that it would have to work it's less about that. Technically, the way that it would have to work it would have to be that wound for 1d4 turns is now unable to be healed. You cannot roll for it. You cannot heal it. You can't do anything about it. Next attack that I do now in this location, you cannot heal that wound. You cannot do this wound. But when hitting someone normally, when just doing damage, you could have it that damage cannot be healed for again 1d4 turns. So you have two different things. When causing an injury, however long the injury lasts is however long that the user is not allowed to heal it. Whereas with damage, however much damage you do is the amount of damage that cannot be healed from that attack. Kind of like it's just not going anywhere for a while. Because you could do that. And I mean, obviously, the whole point is that it slows down the whole healing factor rather than just on a single cut. But it's a tricky one without just going nullification. Like like it's so tricky. Because I mean, you could just go nullification, but it only works on healing factor users, and I hate that so much. Like, don't get me wrong, I love nullification. It's just that it's a very lazy way of beating someone. I think we've already said this in our weaknesses and nullification podcasts. I love nullification when it's used like interestingly, but a lot of the time people just use it as that's how you beat them, stop their powers from working. And I think we already said this, like, oh, this character would be so much easier to defeat without their powers, and it's like, yeah, but that's like saying Rakia and Adria would be so much easier to be able to beat if they didn't have their arms and legs and just took damage instantly and died after taking 1 point. Like, it's like, yeah, of course.
Only.
I mean, let's be fair. That is how Adrian started this game off as.
Without any limbs and basically dying after a single hit.
I mean, the audience didn't see that picture because I don't think it was made yet. But yeah, that's how Adrian started off. And then they grew over time to have arms and legs.
Good times.
And be able to take a punch.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of the gadgets, I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ones, but I think those are the three main ones that he's often seen using. Anything else? I mean, we've pretty much hit the mark on the time, but has anyone else got anything else to say about this one?
Not really, though. I think we've just pretty much covered it, other than, most of it, we've discussed the powers, and now we've got that out of the way. Pretty much all you need to do is just do the role play, of how you would do role play. Because that's, yes, we say, oh yeah, healing factors a must, etc., etc. But really, it wouldn't be Deadpool without, Deadpool behaving like Deadpool, which is just this, snarky, random sort of like rule-breaking, bounty hunter.
Well, in that case, then vice and virtues. I'd say lusts, but I don't know what the virtue would be.
What's friendship?
No, I think
loyalty. I guess.
I think he does, because believe it or not, he is relatively loyal to his friends. Weirdly enough.
I think also, weirdly, it would be like limited kindness. I think because like towards his enemies and like people who who have a bounty on them. Yes, he can be very cruel, but he has this real sense of justice sometimes. Of like, he won't kick a puppy. He will never do that. And he has like. I mean, okay, it's played for laughs, but there are like moral dilemmas he has where it's sort of like, do I hit you? Even though is it bad if I hit you, or like is it sexist if I don't hit you?
Okay, that is a great line from that movie. I will say that. Is it sexist to hit you? Is it more sexist to not hit you? The lines are so blurry as he just cocks his gun.
Yeah.
Or when he joined the animal squad to fight eco terrorists.
I think another thing is that okay, if you were playing Deadpool in either the previous campaign or this campaign, it would also create quite an interesting sort of dynamic because it's that thing of like all of us are trying to be these really like cool characters and these really powerful enemies, and then there's just this guy who's like chimichangas, and you're like, what?
What the hell's a chimichanga? Do they even exist in this universe?
You know what? Probably not.
This universe sucks.
Well, they don't have chimichangas, but they're actually called, they're called chunga chimmies. That's the only difference.
Only difference. Yeah. Only difference. But yeah, I mean, there's a few things we've done with characters all over the place. Is Deadpool a unique character in the terms of the playthroughs that we've done?
Well, that's the weird thing because not recently, no, because you played quite a similar character. In the form, I forget his name, but he was in the war campaign.
The Sinner. He was titled.
The Sinner, yeah. Although he did have quite a few differences, but he was, nigh unkillable. And he was a snarky little sod.
I was also going to argue for Graham's most recent character, the Lucky Child. Because he was snarky and lusty, and he sort of had his own way, and he also had this whole thing. And right at the end, he even then confirmed that he was like an apostle or a believer in Lady Luck. And it's just this whole thing is similar to Deadpool being like almost an apostle of Lady Death, and sort of a lover of Lady Death, and just.
Let's be fair. Lady Death is an apostle of Deadpool. Let's be fair here.
I quite like the language of that. Actually, that is actually brilliant. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I can really say for that. I think we've pretty much hit the mark on that. We've already said that we would definitely do that. I mean, me as a DM, I'd definitely allow this build. Any of the ones that we've said. I still think that I would prefer, in the terms of the player. This is a tricky one because, to be honest, no, you know what? I like them enough, all three of them enough, to actually say I would allow any of the three of them. It's not as easy as the previous one, where like Kane came up with a really amazingly interesting, unique attribute, where it was like, oh my gosh, no, this is the only way to play this. Like, I would allow this only because of, yeah, it's OP, but only because of how ridiculously cool it is and how close it is to the character. To be fair, Deadpool's powers are very simple, and these gadgets, I'd allow all three of these gadgets, to be honest. Like, even if they were starting items, I'd allow them because they're quite interesting.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't, to be honest. I think you'd have to like earn them through the campaign, I would say. But yeah, they are really cool items. It's like, yeah, I would allow them.
I mean, if there's any item I would allow him, it'd probably be like the bag of holding sack. That would probably be the only item I would allow him. Because even when he started, he didn't have like the teleportation belt or this bicardium sword.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, that's fair enough. I mean, although the only problem is that how exactly could they get their hands on something like that?
Well, DM Alliance. Or like he finds it in an ancient crypt, as you often do.
As you often do, yeah.
Yeah, like, let's be honest.
Hang on a second, let me just blow this 3,000-year-old dust off of this high-tech gadget belt.
Yeah, if I went in ancient crypt and didn't find some kind of BFG weapon, I would be disappointed.
They like play into that as well. It's like, oh yeah, well, any RPG adventure starts with a dungeon crawl. It's like, what are you talking about?
I mean, recently that is incorrect, but technically, now that I'm thinking about it, actually, yeah, over the last two campaigns I've done, we actually haven't done any kind of dungeon crawl.
No, I mean, like, let's be honest, Deadpool would mention that when they get to like the center of the crypt, like, where's the cool magic swag?
I mean, he actually probably would, especially if he knew he was in a tabletop RPG. He would just be like, hey, where's all the cool stuff? Oh, sorry, the loot.
Just seeing like breathing on everything, looking at everything, poking everything. Where's the trapdoors going to open this magic swag stuff?
Wizard, kill him! He's got all the loot.
Where's the crypt with the dead body in it that's got a cool necklace? Or a scepter? Or a magic eye? Or something?
Ooh, that definitely screams do not touch. I'ma touch it.
Yes.
It'd be like, a thing with me as well. It's just sort of like, oh man, I'm sorry, I have to kill you. You've got too much XP within you. Nothing personal.
Man. I mean, I know that you're not that bad of a guy, but takes out sword. I really can start telling that you are going to be one heck of a Christmas present.
I only need 100 more XP to level up, and you look just like that.
And you look about worth it. You look your weight in XP.
You look about like 85, 90, maybe, on a good day.
On a good day. Oh dear. Well, that comes to an end of our podcast. Well, if you can call it that. This was Deadpool, AnimiteTales Character Workshop. That was awful. I'm going to try that again. Oh. No, I'm not.
Special guest, Ryan Reynolds.
We did another one of these things, and we did it kind of well, I guess, maybe, possibly.
Yeah, this is a great, talking up with the podcast, I gotta say. This is
Absolutely.
Just like... all of us,
You know what? If you did not agree with how we built it, well done for you, because we'd like to hear your views on this. I mean, personally, we'd also like to see if anyone can actually do it with any of the other tabletop RPGs. So if you think that you could make Deadpool in any of the other tabletop RPGs, post the comments down below. As always, this has been the AnimiteTales, or AnimiteTales. on YouTube. You can also follow me at Twitter at AnimiteTales, or you can check out some more of our videos on YouTube, I guess. If you didn't get the announcement, because I still haven't posted them in the correct order, we will also be at some point building a website. Yay, update. But boo for me not actually posting this last week. So, thank you everyone for listening, and as always, have a great night.
Bye.
See you in the future.
He said the thing. He said the thing.
So I don't know. Is do I say it for this podcast, or is it only meant to be for the actual podcast?
That's fair enough. Ciao, ciao for now.